Hey everyone, and welcome back to Gambling Flow, your daily dose of, well, pretty much everything gambling.
Everything gambling.
I'm Russell Kane.
And I'm Fiona Blake.
And today, we're going to be doing something a little bit different to the usual strategies and big wins. We're going to be taking a deep dive into some real-life stories of people who have struggled with gambling addiction.
Yeah.
And these aren't just, statistics we're talking about. We're going to look at real human experiences. And I think it really highlights the personal cost that can sometimes come with gambling.
It's so important to remember, behind those flashing lights and the excitement of maybe the casino or online, there are real lives being affected. And as we go through these stories today, you'll find that addiction, it really doesn't discriminate. It can touch anyone, regardless of, their background, their financial situation, or even, how they started gambling in the first place.
Yeah, it's that slippery slope, isn't it? I mean, we've all been there, haven't we? We've started off maybe playing the pokies down the pub with some friends, and it all seems harmless enough, doesn't it, at the time? But for some people, it can turn into something a lot bigger and a lot harder to control.
Absolutely. And that's exactly where Sharon's story starts. She started playing the pokies casually, but as time went on, that thrill of winning, however small it was, it started to really consume her thoughts. And before she knew it, she was spending more and more time, more and more money at the pokies, neglecting her responsibilities and even resorting to stealing from her daughter's piggy bank to fuel her addiction.
God, that's just heartbreaking, isn't it? It,
Yeah.
it just shows how insidious this can be.
Yeah.
How it can really work your priorities and lead you to do things that you never thought possible.
And that's why it's so important to recognize those early warning signs. If you or someone you know starts exhibiting a preoccupation with gambling, whether it's, chasing losses or experiencing financial difficulties as a result of their gambling habits, it's so crucial to seek help.
Yeah, and it's not even limited to those kind of traditional forms of gambling, is it? Like the pokies or casinos. I mean, the rise of online gambling has made it, even more accessible and potentially even more addictive in some ways.
100%. Take Michelle Singlehurst's story, for example. She was a successful businesswoman and it's a seemingly perfect life, loving family, beautiful home, but she found herself drawn to online slots as a way to unwind after, a stressful day at work. And what started as a harmless escape, just to kind of de-stress, quickly spiraled into an uncontrollable addiction.
So even with, a comfortable life and no real obvious financial pressures, she still fell into that trap of addiction. It's like anyone can be vulnerable, isn't it? Regardless of their circumstance.
Absolutely, and that's why we can't afford to be complacent or judgmental about addiction. It's essential to understand that there are these really complex psychological and neurological factors at play. And for Michelle, the convenience and anonymity of online gambling, coupled with the, alluring design of these slot games, it really created this perfect storm for addiction to take hold.
So we've seen how seemingly harmless gambling can spiral out of control and how it can impact everyday people like Sharon and Michelle. But what about those who gamble on a much larger scale? Do their stories paint a different picture?
Not necessarily, in fact. The stories of these high-stakes gamblers often demonstrate that addiction can affect anyone, regardless of, their financial status or even their perceived level of control. Let's consider David Bradford. Over a span of 30 years, he amassed a staggering debt of £500,000 due to his gambling habit. And despite facing these, mounting financial losses and personal turmoil, he was unable to break free from that cycle of chasing wins and trying to recoup his losses.
30 years. I mean, that's a lifetime, isn't it? Really, to be caught in the grip of addiction. I can't even fathom the pressure, the desperation that he must have felt. To think that someone can lose such a substantial amount of money, it really does highlight the potential for financial devastation that this addiction can cause.
And for David, the consequences extended far beyond financial ruin. He ended up serving time in prison for offenses related to his gambling. And this case really does underscore the far-reaching impact of addiction. It's not just about the money. It's about the erosion of trust, the damage to relationships, and even the potential loss of freedom.
It's like a ripple effect, isn't it?
Yeah.
It can impact every aspect of your life. And it makes you wonder, are there specific factors that contribute to this kind of high-stakes gambling addiction? Is it simply a matter of having more money to lose? Or are there deeper psychological factors at play?
That's a great question, and I think it's important to understand that addiction operates on this complex interplay of factors. While financial resources do certainly play a role. There are often underlying psychological vulnerabilities, such as impulsivity, a need for excitement, or even a distorted perception of risk and reward. And all of these can contribute to high-stakes gambling.
So it's like a combination of personality traits and opportunity almost that creates this perfect breeding ground for this kind of extreme addiction.
Precisely. And to illustrate that point, let's look at the case of Victor Gajonas, who was a successful financier, and he defrauded investors of a staggering $19 million to fuel his lottery addiction.
Hold on, a lottery addiction. Now that's not something you hear every day. I mean, most people think of the lottery as a harmless bit of fun.
Right, but for Victor, it became an obsession. He was convinced he could crack the code, predict the winning numbers, and win big. And this belief, combined with his access to significant funds, led him down a path of deceit and ultimately landed him in legal trouble.
So even with a background in finance and an understanding of probability, he still succumbed to that allure of a big win. It seems like addiction can truly cloud judgment and lead people to make, completely irrational choices, no matter their expertise.
Absolutely. And Victor's case highlights a crucial point about gambling addiction. It's not just about the type of gambling or even the amount of money involved. It's about that compulsive behavior, the inability to stop, even in the face of negative consequences, and the psychological grip that the pursuit of wins can have on an individual.
It's almost like a force of nature, isn't it?
Yeah.
That sweeps people away despite their best intentions. I mean, it's both fascinating and terrifying.
Yeah.
So we've seen how addiction can manifest itself in various forms, from those casual pokies to these high stakes financial schemes. But is there any hope for recovery? Can people really break free from this destructive cycle?
That's a question we're going to explore in the next part of our deep dive. We'll delve into stories of redemption, resilience, and the various paths that individuals have taken to reclaim their lives from the clutches of gambling addiction.
Stay tuned, listeners. Welcome back to Gambling Flow. We've been talking about the dark side of gambling, addiction. But amidst all these stories of struggle and loss, there is hope. People can recover. And their journeys, I think, offer valuable insights for anyone battling this issue.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. There's this powerful human element to it, this resilience that shines through even the darkest of times. David Bradford, whose story we discussed earlier, is a prime example of this. He hit rock bottom, he faced imprisonment, but he found his way back.
Prison was his turning point, wasn't it? It forced him to confront his addiction head on and seek help.
Yeah, sometimes hitting rock bottom can be that catalyst for change. And in David's case, joining support groups like Gamblers Anonymous became his lifeline. The shared experiences, the understanding, the non-judgmental support, it all played a vital role in his recovery.
It's amazing how connecting with others who understand your struggle can be so empowering. They've been there, they get it, and that shared journey can make all the difference.
100%. And David's story isn't unique. Many people find that support networks are absolutely crucial in their recovery process, but there are also individual journeys that are equally inspiring. Consider Ted Ngoy, the Donut King. His story is almost like a Hollywood movie. He built this successful business, lost it all to gambling, found redemption, went back to his home country, got involved in politics, even had an affair, and then rebuilt his life again. Talk about a roller coaster.
It's like a testament to the human spirit's ability to bounce back, even from multiple setbacks. What strikes me about Ted is that his recovery wasn't just about breaking free from gambling. It was a complete life transformation.
Exactly. Ted found solace in spirituality, and he rebuilt his relationships with his family. He discovered that recovery goes beyond addressing the addiction itself. It's about addressing those underlying emotional needs and finding purpose in life.
It's a holistic approach, isn't it? It addresses the physical, the mental, and the spiritual aspects of well-being. It's inspiring, It shows that even after falling multiple times, you can still pick yourself up and find a path to a better life.
And sometimes those paths are long and arduous, filled with challenges and setbacks. Matt Blanks' story is a poignant example of this. He lost a staggering 700,000 pounds over a decade, even gambled away his father's savings, and the guilt and shame led him to attempt suicide.
God, that's just heart-wrenching. To reach such a point of despair, it shows how deeply this addiction can impact mental health and well-being.
Matt's story is a stark reminder that that gambling addiction can have life-threatening consequences. But what's equally important is his eventual recovery. He reached out for professional help, he engaged in therapy, participated actively in support groups. It was a long and difficult process, but he hasn't gambled since 2018.
That's incredible. It shows that even after immense loss and profound despair, recovery is possible. It's a testament to the power of seeking help, the resilience of the human spirit,
Yeah.
and the transformative power of support and therapy.
And it underscores the importance of early intervention. If we can identify the warning signs and encourage individuals to seek help before they reach that crisis point, we can prevent a lot of suffering and potentially save lives.
So what are some of those red flags that listeners should be aware of?
Well, keep in mind that addiction can manifest differently in different people. But some common warning signs include a preoccupation with gambling, increased secrecy around finances, withdrawing from social activities, chasing losses, lying about gambling habits, and experiencing mood swings or irritability.
Those are definitely things to watch out for, not just in yourself, but also in your loved ones. And it's important to remember that seeking help is a sign of strength. It's not a weakness. There's no shame in admitting that you need support. And there are resources available to help people recover.
Absolutely. There are helplines, support groups, and professional therapists who specialize in gambling addiction. Reaching out is the first step towards regaining control and rebuilding your life.
These stories of recovery are powerful, they're inspiring, but we also need to acknowledge the tragic reality that not everyone finds their way back.
Yeah, and unfortunately, Jack Ritchie's story is a heartbreaking example of this. He was a young man caught in the grip of addiction, who ultimately took his own life due to the overwhelming guilt and shame he was carrying.
His story is a sobering reminder of the devastating consequences that can result from unchecked gambling addiction.
And it underscores the importance of addressing the stigma surrounding mental health and addiction. We need to create a more supportive and understanding environment where people feel comfortable seeking help without fear of judgment.
It's about breaking the silence, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Fostering open conversations.
Yeah.
And ensuring that resources are readily available to those who need them.
Exactly. We need to move away from shame and blame and
Right.
towards compassion and support. We need to educate ourselves and others about the complexities of addiction and advocate for policies and programs that prioritize prevention, treatment, and recovery.
Speaking of complexities, there's one more story that really got to me. This 42-year-old accountant, despite her expertise in numbers, ended up with a staggering 125,000 pounds in gambling losses. It just shows that addiction can affect anyone, regardless of their profession or intelligence.
It's a prime example of how the allure of gambling can override logic and rational thinking. And it raises questions about the role of gambling institutions
Yeah.
in preventing and addressing addiction.
Should casinos have a responsibility to monitor their patrons' behavior
Mm-hmm.
and intervene when they see, signs of problematic gambling?
That's a complex issue with ethical and legal implications, but
Yeah.
but I think there's a growing consensus that gambling institutions need to take a more proactive approach
Mhm.
in promoting responsible gambling and providing support for those who are struggling.
It's about striking a balance, isn't it,
Yeah.
between individual responsibility
Yeah.
and the need for safeguards to protect vulnerable individuals.
And it's about recognizing that addiction is not a personal failing, but a complex health issue that requires a multifaceted approach to prevention, treatment, and support.
Yeah, it's a delicate balance for sure. But after diving deep into all these stories, it's clear that gambling addiction is a serious issue with far-reaching consequences.
Absolutely. It can impact individuals, families, communities in really profound ways. But amidst all the darkness, there's always a glimmer of hope. Recovery is possible, and there are resources available to help people find their way back.
So for our listeners out there who might be struggling or know someone who is, what's the key takeaway they should remember?
Well, first and foremost, recognize that you're not alone. Gambling addiction is more common than you might think. And there's no shame in seeking help. There are support groups like Gamblers Anonymous, helplines, therapists who specialize in addiction.
And what about for those who are concerned about a loved one? How can they offer support?
We'll start by having an open and an honest conversation. Express your concern, listen without judgment, and offer your support. Encourage them to seek professional help, and let them know that you're there for them every step of the way.
It's about creating a safe and supportive environment, isn't it? Where people feel comfortable sharing their struggles and seeking help.
Without fear of judgment or rejection.
Exactly. And remember that recovery is a journey. It's not a destination. There will be ups and downs, setbacks and challenges along the way. But with the right support and a commitment to change, it's possible to break free from the grip of addiction and build a healthier, happier life.
Well said. And on that note, we've reached the end of our deep dive into the world of gambling addiction. We hope these stories have been, informative, insightful, and perhaps even a catalyst for change for some of you listening.
It's been a privilege sharing these insights with you and with our listeners. And remember, folks, this is Gambling Flow, your daily dose of everything gambling. If you found this deep dive helpful, please don't forget to subscribe, like, comment, and share with anyone who might benefit from these important conversations. Until next time, stay informed, gamble responsibly, and take care.
Take care, everyone.